Perfect. So this is Colorado Career Connectors. This is behind the recruitment curtain, the post-pandemic job market. And today we have two people that I absolutely trust and cannot wait for you to hear that are going to be talking about a lot of questions about, is the Great Resignation really true? We're going to have questions on the Equal Pay Act for Colorado. And for those of you that I have not met, I'm Shelley Johnson. I am the founder of Colorado Career Connectors, and I also am the CEO of Best You Career Advantage. I work with clients all over the country and all over the world to really amplify your awesome, if you will. I'm an award-winning career and business strategist, and I started my business about a year and a half ago, and before that I was the talent acquisition director at Comcast Technologies and a senior leader at Lockheed Martin and Quest Diagnostics. So I've been in talent a long time, and I started Colorado Career Connectors because I really wanted to bring you the highest quality information from speakers and talent acquisition leaders in Denver, or those who hire in Denver, so that you know what is going on in the market. We do have lots of people from different areas. If you're calling in from DC or Northern Virginia or California or Texas or Arizona, we welcome you. This information is able to be leveraged across the country, and we are here in Denver. So if you're ready to hear from professionals on how to fast track your compensation and how to best connect and find that hidden job market, we want to be able to help you. I wanted to let you know that on my website, there is a 7-step framework to help amplify your career and fast track your job search. And the website for that is Best You Career Advantage Get the Guide. This is free for you. We send out lots of information on things going on and newsletters and coaching session information. So please go to my website and subscribe to that. We're not going to send out anything that is not high quality information from on jobs. So we'd love for you to become part of our network. And this is a 13-page document that is free for you, that I would love to have you subscribe to and get a free download of. I also wanted to let you know that one of our speakers, Megan Jo Spect, and I are going to be partnering on a career camp for women 40 plus on August 20th from 9 to 3. She's a panelist and I'm a speaker. And we also have the two founders from Second Act Women coming to speak to Colorado Career Connectors on the 16th of August. So Guadalupe Hurt and Barbara Brooks are putting together some amazing content for women over their 40s at their career camp. Again, Megan Jo is a panelist, I'm a speaker. So this is more information that you can find on Colorado Career Connectors and the career camp, which is going to be live and at General Assembly on Friday, August 20th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. So because Megan Jo is going to be speaking at our panelists, I just wanted to mention and cross-promote both of our participation on these events. Today's panelists are Patrick Stearns. He is the Senior Director of Talent at Telnyx, and Megan Jo Spect is a technical recruiter at AWS. I'd like for Patrick to introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, Shelley. Yeah, great to meet everybody virtually, of course. My name is Patrick Stearns, as Shelley said. I'm the Senior Director of TA over at Telnyx. Telnyx is a CPaaS, or communication platform as a service organization headquartered out of Chicago, but hiring globally. I actually just joined the firm at the end of February 22nd, and we've been growing quite rapidly. We've already grown to more than 250 employees in that short time. I have another 20 starting over the next couple months here, so they've been keeping me quite busy. And a little bit about myself. I've been in talent acquisition now for, I will say, 15 and a half years, and generally have been in the software as a service space.
Perfect. Thank you, Patrick. MJ, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Megan Jo Spect, or MJ. I am a senior technical recruiter for Amazon Web Services, and I specialize in hiring really niche cloud engineers for all of North America. But I've been in recruiting in the Denver market for almost 20 years. And I have recruited across all lines of business, all levels of positions. I'm really passionate about helping job seekers, really get the best job at the best compensation for them. So I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Shelley.
Thank you to both Patrick and Megan Jo. Very excited to have you. So let's go ahead and jump in. And as talent acquisition leaders, we wanted to be able to bring to you some information behind the recruitment curtain and talk about, is the Great Resignation really happening? And what are Patrick and MJ hearing from candidates and within your organization? So MJ, I will start with you on this one. What are you hearing? What's going on at AWS? And what are kind of questions are candidates asking you about this?
I will tell you it's much easier to engage with candidates right now because a lot of them were so polarized with fear during the height of COVID that even if they were completely miserable in their job, they were hesitant to make a move. And now that we understand that in some parts of the country, COVID is tampering down and things are starting to reopen. And for other parts of the country, they're kind of realizing that, COVID might be here to stay and I can't just, I've been miserable in my job for 2 years now and I need to make a move. Luckily, I work for an organization like AWS where people really see that as kind of a sure bet. If you are going to make a jump, AWS is definitely the type of company that you would be interested in doing that. So I'm finding it's much easier to engage with candidates. My LinkedIn in-mail responses have doubled and tripled probably in the last 6 months. So I definitely think that from a candidate perspective, they are starting to dip their toe back into the water and see what's out there, and they're not as afraid to leave. What I will tell you is that I hope that you always work for an organization that is constantly inviting you to have the opportunity to leave if you can. And what I mean by that is the worst time to start figuring out how to interview is when you need to interview. And the worst time to start building your network is when you need your network. And so I hope that you work for an organization that invites you to interview with other companies, interview for other opportunities, maybe even interview internally to make a shift. AWS is very much encouraging of, if you can find something that is better for you, we want that for you. And so we recommend that you pursue that. And I think that's good for your skill set.
That's awesome. Thank you, MJ. Patrick, how about you?
Yeah, I think MJ's spot on as it relates to like candidates and the outreach. I mean, we do see an increase in in-mail responses. People are more active out there in the market. I do not have the luxury of having the AWS name behind me, so I'm definitely super jelly of MJ there. But Telnyx as a within the CPaaS space, we are pretty well known, and we've been making some waves. So that has played to our benefit when it comes to the outreach. I think internally and kind of looking at the concerns I had coming into March, April, May, June, when all the chatter starting back in February was like, it's going to come. 45% of your workforce is out the door. Count on it. Like, get ahead. Because of the growth that we are seeing, and we as an organization are very candid with everybody about our performance. Here's where we're at. Here's our spend. Here's our monthly revenue. Here's because we have these weekly meetings that we call firesides. I think we've been able to avoid the large attrition boost that everybody's talked about. I mean, frankly, if anything, we've had a few, I will say, involuntary departures that we had to make a difficult decision on, that we've been in a good spot. So, when you look at the landscape overall, I think MJ's right again about like build your network. These kind of forums are amazing. Make sure you're making the connections out there. Ask folks like myself, MJ, Shelley, for guidance, like even a 10, 15-minute conversation on here's what I'm seeing out there. Or here's how I'm structuring my outreach to these people. Is that the right approach? Like, I know that happy to personally set aside that sort of time to help somebody out in the job market, because karma is a real thing. So if you can leverage our networks, we want to make sure that we can help you out.
Patrick, that's awesome. Karma is a real thing. And so one of the topics that I absolutely want to highlight today is both MJ and you stated that in mail, you're getting double, triple the amount. So how can a job seeker or someone who's looking to get into Telnyx or AWS stand out from the crowd and make an impact for you as a recruiter if they're reaching out to you?
I'll go first on this one, MJ. I think the data that you're supplying to us up front that demonstrates that you put the time and effort to find out who we are. I'll even say, as far as like my first recruiter screen with people, because although I'm seeing the operations, I'm still very much in the trenches, having those conversations on a day-to-day basis. After I cover off on potential deal breakers or showstoppers with folks, because again, I do want to keep time top of mind, not waste people's time. I'll bring up why Telnyx, and it's a very early tell on the candidate's part if they give some high level BS answer of like, I want to get into the tech world, or I just saw what you all are doing and it's really attractive to me. And when I press and I say, well, what specifically about our technology or our organization was really appealing? If they don't show that they've done the appropriate level of research, I'm not as excited going in the conversation. I want that we should be as prepared on your profile as you should be prepared on us. And that would be my first recommendation, is to make sure you're highlighting that I have done the research and here's why my background aligns with whatever it is that specific role is you're most interested in.
Perfect. Thank you. MJ.
My response will piggyback off of that and then contradict it. So go with me. In the world of finding a new job, quality over quantity is always invaluable. And so it is more beneficial, and it will behoove you to apply to 5 companies that you are really deeply interested in. And that will give you the opportunity to do your research on those organizations, so that when Patrick says, why us, you have a good elevator speech for that. I want you to apply only for positions that you are genuinely qualified for. If I see that a candidate has applied for 10 open roles within AWS and they're not really very similar, I'm going to wonder if you are really interested in my role and the one that I'm working on. And I'm not going to call you to find out. I'm just going to go to the next applicant. And so quality over quantity is very, very, very important. If you are fast applying, if you're applying to hundreds of jobs at a time and you're kind of falling into a black hole, that would be why. The other thing is that, and you will notice that Patrick and I have both talked about InMails. 99.9% of the people that I hire do not apply to my role. And the reason for that is the job title and the job description really don't capture what it is that I'm looking for. And so the type of people who apply are the wrong people. And that's a different conversation with leadership of AWS. It's not going to be fixed in this panel, but I am reaching out to people. I'm 99% of the people that I hire are passive candidates that I found on LinkedIn. And I reached out to them and said, hey, are you interested in this opportunity? So I want you to make sure that your LinkedIn profiles are robust, that they are attractive, that they clearly tell me what it is that you do, what you're looking for. If you are looking to make a career change or transition, make sure that you're utilizing your summary to tell me that. Make sure your skills section is updated, that you've got keywords, things of that nature, because your next job might not come from something that you applied for, but something that a recruiter reached out to you about. And so that's really important as well.
And Jay, I can't even tell you how much I agree with what you're saying. So many of my clients come to me and they have like these very basic LinkedIn profiles. And when you are looking for a role, you have to use that About Me section, put your phone number in there, really be clear about what you're looking for. Put your contact information in there, in the About Me section, because not all recruiters look at your contact. They're going to look at the About Me area. And so I just want to dovetail on what you're talking about with the importance of LinkedIn. One question that we're getting is any advice for how to use Zoom and to interview well off of Zoom?
Patrick, do you want to go?
I'll let you take this one. I think I got a good one though.
Okay. This simply comes down to practice.
Right.
Interviewing in a Zoom capacity is unnatural. It's strange. All of the things that we have been taught about interviewing, with EQ, body language, communication outside of words does not always translate in Zoom. And so, it's really about practice, finesse. Also make sure that you aren't forgetting all of the things that you learned in-person interviewing just because it is Zoom. One of my most famous LinkedIn articles was when the phone rings, have pants on. Make sure that you are dressed, make sure that you are confident, make sure that you are treating it with the same reverence that you would be treating a typical in-person interview. And remember those little things like hands and facial expressions and things of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, it's super unnatural. I don't think I'm used to it still. And I'm sitting here trying to be on a panel. So what do I know? But one of the things that we do at Telnyx is we actually have an interviewing with Telnyx like PDF. I want to say it's probably 4 or 5 pages, and it just outlines, here's what you can expect. Here's the steps we will typically follow. Here's how you should prepare for your interview, whether on site or over Zoom. And one of the things we tell folks is like, just come as you are. Like, we are fairly casual here. So am I wearing a Telnyx t-shirt, or most of the times I'm wearing a shirt that's from a brewery that's local to Chicago? Like, that's how I dress. And because we go out of our way to say that, I feel like when people come with the suit and tie, it's almost like did they read the document? Are they picking up on the vibe? And I hope most organizations go out of their way to convey like what sort of vibe they keep. I think you can have your connections within an organization and seek that sort of information out, but it's on us oftentimes as a talent acquisition resource to provide you with that guidance. And I would encourage, if you are moving forward, don't hesitate to ask whomever your point of contact's been, like, what is best practice for your org? It's not an uncommon question. I think you'll be surprised oftentimes, like when you do hear, well, just a hoodie and jeans is fine, right? The pants piece, I mean, you're not going to see pants. So if you're more comfortable without, that's just your call, but just don't stand up.
When your phone rings, have pants on. I assure you.
When your phone rings, make sure that you're ready, that you're present. I do webinars quite often for how do you use Zoom? And there's lots of details out there. So I want to go to the next question, and this is kind of controversial. So in Colorado, there's a new pay equity law that was implemented at the beginning of the year. And the question is, why are companies outside of Colorado hesitant to hire talent in Colorado? So Patrick, MJ, and I had quite the conversation when we were preparing for this. And so Megan, Jo, I'd like for you to start with this one. What are your thoughts on the new pay equity law?
We hate it. We hate it. And this is just another example of when something sounded really good, and then put into practice was not helpful, right? I think that the need for transparency around salary and, the desire for people to have an idea of what a position pays before they, spend all the time of applying and interviewing for it. I think that the thought was really good. However, here's why it doesn't always work. It's never showing you really true or accurate information, and it's not showing you apples to apples. Every single company in the world has a very different compensation philosophy, and that means that some organizations, like startups, pay really high salaries because they don't have things like stock and equity, that can be traded, or maybe they would rather pay high salaries because they don't have great benefits, things of that nature. AWS and Amazon in general is an organization where our stock is so valuable that our compensation model is to have low base salaries, supplement it with different bonuses, cash sign-on payments, and equity in the form of RSUs. And other organizations, have great benefits. I mean, you aren't seeing any real true information by what's posted on a job posting because, so for example, a position that I'm working on, the base salary for that position is $98,000 a year. The law says that we have to put the minimum base salary information, which is that $98,000 a year. The total compensation for that position after an offer is prepared is north of 225. It could be 240, 250, things of that nature. And if somebody just decided to apply or to not apply based on seeing that the minimum base salary is 98,000, they might have missed out on a really great job. So I just don't think that it's fair. And everybody has things that are differently important to them. Some people work for certain organizations because of the benefits that they offer, or because of the equity, or because of the high salary. So I just want to caution you in telling you that when you are reading that, the thought process was really good, but you're only seeing really the top of the iceberg, and you're not necessarily comparing apples to apples. So be careful with it.
Yeah, know your worth. That's the biggest thing you can do is just know where you need to be at based on your experience. Companies are going to have varied ranges, like MJ said, and that whole workaround to be able to say starts at X versus like this is what we are actually willing to pay. That's what all companies are taking advantage of right now. I think I saw a LinkedIn thread last week actually where some organization had open to remote US with parentheses except Colorado. And it's like, is this the direction we're really going to head with that? And if so, like, how are we going to get everybody else to follow suit? Because if the pay transparency piece is what's most important, there needs to be better parameters around it. And you've got to make sure you're addressing those workarounds.
We had a question around negotiating relocation costs. Since we're talking about total compensation, I would love to just get any quick advice on negotiating relocation costs as part of a total compensation package.
Are they requiring you to relocate, or is this a choice? Like, what's the follow-up question on that?
No,
I was like, I saw Doris leaning in, like, I think this is my answer. If they're not requiring it, that's a tough one. I feel like if they were upfront in the start of the process and said that you cannot do this role remotely, and you absolutely 100% need to be located in X city, then you have every right to go back and say, I'm in the process of making this move. I would expect $5,000 pre-tax for assistance at this stage. But if it's something where it's a preference, you can still go back to them and maybe provide them with the data that, again, goes back to your research to say, if I'm moving from here to here, this is what my costs are going to be. I would expect an organization would cover X percentage. And honestly, I don't know the research, what the research says as to what percentage is typically covered, but do all of that to then go back with a nice bullet point approach saying, based on all of this, this is why I'm, asking to have this as part of my offer package. I think that would be the best approach.
MJ, any thoughts on that?
I think that this gets really tricky when it's a differentiator between the company requiring your relocation and you wanting to relocate. Every company that I've worked for in the last 10 years or so has typically had two different kinds of relocation packages. And there is what's called a lump sum free agent. And it's basically like, if you're going to relocate, I can give you a lump sum of $5,000 and you can use that however you would like. Or we can do a processed relocation, which means that I'm not going to give you a lump sum. I'm going to hire a moving company and fly you out to the new place that you're going and set up a meeting with a realtor. And I'm going to help you sell your house and buy a new house and all of those things. And there's not a price tag tied to it, but then you are also at the mercy of that company, because if they're going to hire a moving company, they're going to pick the moving company, right? So, I mean, it depends on if you're going to put all of the things in the back of your car and drive across country with your closest prized possessions, or if you have to move cars and children and sell houses and things of that nature. So I think that's a very large can of worms.
Yes, I ran global mobility and domestic relocation for Lockheed Martin. So if you'd like to chat specifically about your need, Doris, please put some time on my calendar and we can do that. Okay, let's go to the next question, which is also pretty controversial right now. And should we return to the office or not to return to the office? What's the plan on if we are going back? What's the hybrid plan? And how is it being orchestrated? So MJ, I'd love to start with you and how this is being done and what kind of questions you're hearing from candidates on hybrid models or going back to the office.
This is a really big front of mind, top of mind thought for candidates, and it will make the difference between am I interested in this company or not. And I think basically what this comes down to is, how does your company view and value their employees? So one of the things about working for AWS is we hire adults and we treat them like adults. And so we have offices that are there for your resource, and it allows people to go into the office if they would like, and it doesn't require them to go into the office if they don't need to. Sometimes it's easier to go into the office to do a whiteboarding session or a knowledge share, or, to have a collaborative event, something of that nature, as opposed to, you need to have your butt in your seat 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, whatever that looks like. But that was a policy of AWS's pre-COVID. And so the direction post-COVID is that we hire adults and we treat them like adults. I think digging into a company's policy on this and finding out what that looks like is going to tell you a lot about how that company views things like micromanagement, things of that nature. What other questions? Oh, sorry. I thought that was a question for me. Just reading Shelley's question. So I think it's more of a telltale sign of other things that you can gauge when digging into that.
Patrick, how about you?
So I was at an organization that had an in-office culture and was very upfront about it prior to joining Telnyx. And my understanding of Telnyx is they actually had an in-office culture as well. Fortunately for me, I think they've seen the writing on the wall. I can't speak on Epsilon's behalf because I don't know what their current stance is, but I know that they haven't reopened the offices yet. But I expect that once they do it, their hybrid approach is typically going to be 2-3 days a week. And as a candidate, you have every right, again, up front to say what is the expectation. Again, here at Telnyx being somewhat uniquely positioned, we're a communication platform as a service company. So I thought that prior they would have already been like that, especially since we're located across 25 countries. But it's my understanding that they weren't, and they've seen the light a bit. However, I would say there's still the hybrid to the hybrid approach because, as MJ says, when you're hiring adults who have demonstrated in their career to be able to own responsibilities, whatever's in front of them and still deliver, there are going to be those instances where somebody does need a little bit more hand-holding. And I know that some of the roles that we would require here at Telnyx, and we'll make sure that we provide them with the appropriate locations, all the support they can, and their leadership will be in the office with them, are things like an entry-level SDR role. Somebody who just graduated college. I don't want to say you can't trust them to own their career, but you're not setting them up for success if you're not there with them on a day-to-day basis. Like my first job out of college was with CDW. I was banging out 125 cold calls a day. Like, had I not been in an environment where leadership was over your shoulder and you're in the pit with others and you're listening to how they approach those conversations so you can borrow their content to be better at your job, like, I don't think I would have been as good at my job if I was just sitting in my basement right now. Like, it takes time to be able to get up to speed on that. So there are going to be those cases where for those sort of roles, it should be required for them to be in the office. But once they've demonstrated, say 9 months in, that, look, I'm good to go, then it's 9 months for the next class that's starting. So, it's a constant cycle for the leadership within those groups, but those people, once they demonstrate that they are dependable, they can crush all their goals, we will give them the freedom to perform wherever they want.
Perfect. As a coach, I see people, my clients all the time asking that question. Is this a remote position? It's listed as remote. Just want to make sure it is. Talk to me a little bit about your hybrid situation. So as candidates, you absolutely can ask that question early in the process to see what might be right for you. If you have not read this, it is the HBR, Harvard Business Review, May-June edition, doing hybrid right. There's so many articles out there. And as a coach, I'm part of many associations, and I4CP, which is an HR leader organization. There are so many trainings and webinars that HR folks are going through on how to bring folks back, hybrid policies, how to maintain remote workforce, how to leverage that diverse work pool or workforce and diverse candidate pool that is out there all over the world now. Another article that I brought up last time is this future of work after the pandemic. This was in the Denver Business Journal. And this is the head of Western Union, the head of Newmont Mining, et cetera. So there's lots and lots of articles out there for you, but this is definitely on the top of people's minds, and it's being done in different ways by different companies. So Patrick and MJ, thank you for talking about how it's being done at Telnyx and AWS. And I did want to share that Sheila put in the chat that a lot of the postings that she's seeing that companies are hiring like 1 hour from the office. So make sure that if it's important to you, that you understand commute time. If you need to go into the office, you understand, is there a stipend for working remotely? What happens when power goes down and the internet? What type of services are provided to you if you are going to be working remotely? But I know from seeing this and from looking at lots of different job sites that a lot more companies are allowing this and bringing back people from a hybrid perspective. So let's go to the next question. And if you have been following Colorado Career Connectors, you know that there is always a topic or a highlighting diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And so I asked Patrick and MJ to think about what advice they would give to you as how can you stand out as a candidate in discussing this topic? And how important are these topics becoming or consistently are at AWS and Telnyx? And Patrick, we'll start with you.
Yeah, it's at the forefront. Again, having just started in February, coming in, I think one of my major areas of focus was going to be to continue to diversify the workforce. And I don't think I knew the extent to which the problem I was inheriting was, which was unfortunate. But what was really easy to do was to get the buy-in from executive leadership and to express to their direct reports, who maybe aren't my direct reports, but are rather my internal stakeholders, about how important this is and how it can impact business results. So one of the things that I think is imperative for all parties involved is to be comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. Telnyx needs to improve in this space, and that's what it is. But what are we going to do to address it? Well, I'm part of a weekly task force that meets and brings in people, and since we're a smaller organization, it's very much employee driven. We're getting individuals who self-join, so you know they're passionate about this, so they bring fresh ideas to the table. There's the involvement in various communities. We are part of a Women Tech Career, the global conference that occurred back in June. That's how I met Shelley. And just while admittedly, from a hiring perspective, we're not going to get a return on investment from it, like, I don't give a shit. I want to make sure our name is associated with participating in these events because we need to diversify our workforce. And if you can't admit that that's a problem up front, like, you're part of the problem. From a candidate standpoint, I mean, the whole be comfortable having the uncomfortable conversation remains. Like, just ask them, what are you doing to address this? How are you keeping it top of mind? Have you set metrics? What are your goals? Like, be blunt. I could see, and MJ, maybe you could comment on this as well, where somebody might be taken a little bit aback by that. But if they get on the defensive, is that really the type of organization you want to join? I'd say probably not.
So AWS looks at diversity from a really holistic perspective. It's top of mind for us. And we're looking at race, gender, ethnicity, spoken language, but we're also looking at all different kinds of diversity, neurodiversity, educational diversity, background, sexual orientation, cultural location, right? I mean, there are different points of view from somebody who's in Louisiana versus somebody who's in New York City. So we look at diversity really holistically. It's very important to us. And I will tell you that every department has diversity hiring goals. And so here's what I will tell you as a candidate and as a job seeker. Every company in the world right now has diversity hiring goals. That is true. And I'm going to go back to your LinkedIn profile. I am specifically doing searching and sourcing for diverse candidates to increase my filter and pipeline that way. Because if I put more diverse candidates into my pipeline, mathematically, more diverse candidates will be hired. I want you to take advantage of this fact. And so find any part of you that is diverse and add those keywords specifically to your LinkedIn profile. Take a look at what we're looking for. So, for example, my LinkedIn profile says the word female, she, her, girl. If you have ever joined any kind of affinity group that highlights a diverse characteristic of yours, women in tech, Latina X in tech, Black in tech, things of
Sororities.
sororities, fraternities, volunteer groups, any type of affinity indicator that's going to pull up in a keyword search for me, make sure that is on your LinkedIn profile, because diversity is top of mind for every company in the world right now, and recruiters have hiring goals that they need to increase their diverse hires. And I'll tell you what, that's how I'm finding them, because if somebody applies to one of my requisitions, I'm not going to just be able to tell by their name if they're a male or a woman, or a male or a female, if they are diverse in some way. So for my diversity hires, almost all of those are passive candidates that I went out and found, because on their LinkedIn profile, it told me they were neurodiverse or Latina or African American or female or whatever.
So let me just pull the string a little bit more on this topic. The way that Patrick and I met was I was a speaker at Women Tech. I've also spoken at Latina X Tech. I'm speaking tomorrow at Chick Tech. So if you're in technology, there are groups, Lesbians Who Code, Hacker X is coming up. I am part of all of those because I service high achieving, soul inspired professionals in STEM or STEAM. So that's where I'm going. As a candidate, you also can understand that Chick Tech is happening tomorrow, and it actually started today. How do I get involved with that? What's going on? What's going on in your associations? Affinity groups, employee resource groups. As a white heterosexual female, I serve the LGBTQIA community. Therefore, I'm involved with the Queer Alliance. MJ and I are doing a panel for Second Act women 40 and above. So we put ourselves in those communities. And so our advice to you is that you do the same, and that you let people know what you have done. And if you are a white male, heterosexual male, there's a lot of information out there for you. Diversity, White Males for Diversity Allies. It's a group that Lockheed Martin worked with. If you need assistance with this topic, please let me know. I am very involved with this. And we really wanted to talk about how it's important to you and what that, the importance to everyone. So I heard Patrick say it in the beginning that it's absolutely vital that you're networking, and 85% of jobs are found through the hidden job market. So Patrick, let's start with you. Why is it so important to use the hidden job market to find a role?
It's your foot in the door. Like, the people joke about the black hole that is an ATS, but as MJ pointed out, when you're an AWS, like, you're getting thousands of applicants for each role. Telnyx, slightly smaller. Once more, if I haven't mentioned it earlier in the conversation, maybe I did, maybe I didn't, but we get 1,000 applicants for a data analyst role as a 250 person company. There's just no way a single talent acquisition professional is going to be able to cycle through every single one of those applicants. But if you happen to know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody within Telnyx, follow those chains. Like, Shelly's clearly very well connected in the Denver area, MJ as well. I will say my presence in the Chicago market slightly stronger, although, again, having had some time at Epsilon, who has a location up in Westminster, those I've got a decent community out there. But if somebody that I know at an organization is connected to a job that you're looking for, tap me on the shoulder and then tell them like, hey, I want to get in front of this person. How can you introduce me to this person? That's where the whole karma thing comes back into play. That's why you create strong connections within your network and you make sure there's a purpose behind it. So that way, when you do come knocking and ask for that assistance, it's not just a random LinkedIn request that I got that didn't have a note associated with it. So I probably just ignored it. But it was that person that said, hey, Patrick, you were clearly the funniest person on the panel that I attended today. Least attractive by far.
Clearly.
However, so, juggle the good with the not so good in this part. But no, jokes aside, if you make that targeted introduction as to why, oh, man, this was great, thank you for the content, it's accept all day. But if it's just an open-ended invitation, I don't know that you attended this today, so I'm probably going to ignore it or cancel it altogether. But again, knowing somebody who can get you in front of somebody allows you to avoid that black hole of the ATS and increases your chances of getting your foot in the door at that place by, God, I don't know how much, 10x, 20x, it's probably immeasurable.
I think that this goes back to, though, do your research, right? So first and foremost, make sure that you are reaching out with quality and intentionalism and, be respectful of my time. My time is valuable too. And so I want you, so the most efficient, the most successful way to get my attention, if you're using the backdoor job networking scenario, is to send me a message or have your friend send me a message that says, hi, Megan Jo. My very good friend and colleague, Shelly Johnson, recently applied for requisition number 1234. And I can personally vouch for her that she is very talented. I think she would be a great fit for her role. Just so you know, I've also attached her resume to this note. If you're interested, please reach out. So that's how you get my attention versus, hey, Megan Jo, I have this really good friend, Shelly Johnson. She's looking for a job. She's really interested in AWS. Could you take a look at her resume and see if there are any jobs within AWS anywhere in the world that she could be a good fit for? And then would you call her and let her know that?
That is definitely not the way to do that. I actually, for my clients, connect them in to lots of different talent acquisition folks. And hey, want to let you know, this is free for you. I'm working with this client. They're amazing, down to earth. They're getting phone calls. They're landing positions. They're getting interviews. So absolutely reach out to second, third tier. And I love how MJ put that, is be direct, because they are getting 2 to 3 times as many in mails. So you have to be clear, concise, and make sure that there's good quality to amplify your awesome, as I would say. Okay. Our company's asking candidates to provide proof of vaccinations. So this is actually coming up, and this is also a controversial topic around the country. And if so, how is this being handled? MJ, I'll have you start with this one, please.
I think this goes back to really finding out before you get into the job search what you're comfortable with and what you're not, right? And understanding that if an organization asks you to submit your proof of vaccination, that will be a black and white requirement. And so the question for you is, how do you feel about that? Do you want to provide that? And if it is something that you are really strongly interested in, especially if they're mandating that you go back to the office, is it important to you to know that the people that you're surrounding yourself with are vaccinated? The only way to know that is for a company to make their employees provide proof of that. So I think you need to figure out what side of the fence you sit on in regards to that before you start your job search. And if it is something that's really important to you one way or the other, to make sure that you're doing that part of the screening in the beginning of the process.
We opened up our Chicago office June 1st, and anybody who's coming in is required to provide proof of vaccination or to supply some sort of doctor's note as to why they are unable to be vaccinated at that point. Because the large majority of our roles are remote, this really hasn't been something that we've asked. And I think even when we do open up, I mean, everything's up in the air at this point. I can't say whether or not we're going to require them to provide it up front. But I will tell people, if you're going to plan to go into an office, you are going to have to provide that proof of vaccination. I'll, I guess, champion what our CEO said in a larger forum, where he's talking about, like, it's the data. We're a data-driven company. We trust the data. This is not like a political thing. I am not politicizing this. This is just what the data tells me. If the data tells me otherwise, then we will revisit this, but this is the direction. If you're unable to make it in, then you have every right to work remotely, and that's where the hybrid model plays to our favor.
Perfect. So 2 different examples of how it's being leveraged. So I want to, okay, thank you, MJ. Jean was asking, does the panel think that the candidate should apply first before reaching out, or the other way around? And so MJ, thank you for putting that in there. You can submit the application and reach out to the person. I agree with doing it in tandem. So that's perfect. Okay, we only have about 6 more minutes. I just want to start with Patrick. What are the 2 top recommendations or suggestions or pieces of advice that you would give to our audience?
We've already talked about the networking piece, tenfold. I think it's important to reiterate it, however, and even in those instances where maybe you don't have a point of contact at an organization that you're applying to, still make that outreach. Like, if you are actively seeking new jobs right now, minimum 5 outreaches per day that are hyper targeted, demonstrate your research and why you feel you'd be a great fit for that organization and or that specific role. I think the other piece, 2, I wasn't ready for 2. Probably have to give it additional thought. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank. The networking piece is so important, I think. But let's go to MJ. Maybe I can figure one out in a second here.
Cool. Thank you.
Sorry.
MJ.
I think it just goes back to quality versus quantity. I think that you can't interview companies and do your research and, really understand their compensation philosophy if you are applying for hundreds of job opportunities at a time. So you really want to hone your search in, know what's important to you before you go out there. Make sure that you're interviewing a company in the same way that they're interviewing you. Leverage your network. Love your network before you need your network. Always be interviewing, always have your finger on the market. The worst time to reach out to your network and to polish up your interview skills is when you're laid off and looking for a new role. So just quality over quantity, and always be using those skills.
Thank you, MJ. So for all of you, thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you found some nuggets of advice. We will be sending out a recording of this Colorado Career Connectors, and please join us next time as we have BC McGregor talking about confidence on demand, break the grip of doubt forever. You guys, she's amazing. We are highlighting our diversity speakers over the next couple of months as well. We have one of the top 25 women in Denver coming in September. Her name is Simone Ross. We have Barbara Brooks and Guadalupe Hurt that MJ and I will be partnering on their career camp. So again, that is on August 20th. On August 16th, we have Second Act Women with Barbara and Guadalupe focusing on, they are actually speaking on how to help women over 40 get through ageism. So lots of great content speakers coming up for you. And I would be more than happy to consult with you if you have questions on relocation negotiation, anything that you need from a job seeker's perspective. And again, reach out to me via my email and subscribe to the framework that we talked about on how to amplify your awesome.